Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Mr. Oladipo, you're welcome. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of the ESQ Practical Lawyers Academy webinar series. We are glad you could join us today. My name is Tosi Shilanke. I am the Administrator and Head of Training at ESQ Trainings Limited. At ESQ Trainings Limited, our mission is to expand the frontiers of continuous professional learning. We are committed to the development of a robust and easily accessible source of practical information and continuous legal education and professional development for lawyers and for other professionals. This we achieve by providing the highest quality accredited professional education in a variety of formats for lawyers, for accountants, for tax experts, for oil and gas experts, and other professionals. So we offer courses and trainings across various areas of practice, and we have categorized these areas of practice into academies. So we have the litigation and the other dispute resolution academy, we have the intellectual property academy, we have the tax academy, we have the construction and capital projects academy, we have the fintech academy, and many other academies like that. So we have tagged this webinar series, the Launch Our Webinar Series, as they are slated to hold at 1 p.m. during lunch breaks. So they usually hold 3 days of the week, that's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So, however, because of our Muslim participants, in order to accommodate their prayer time, we usually meet at 11 a.m. on Fridays. So our Friday webinars are 11 a.m. And after every session, we provide the resources that are shared. We provide them in easily accessible formats for everyone who is interested. And at the moment, we are taking registrations for our training on power. We have the training on power, which registration is ongoing at the moment. It's a 12 virtual distance learning course, and it's titled The Dynamics of Power Contracts, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, and Project Financing. It commences on the 16th of February 2021. So if you need to get more information about this training, please send me a mail at o.chilanke-law@esq-law.com, o.chilanke@esq-law.com. So the focus of today's webinar is explaining cyber risks to senior executives. So the work of cybersecurity experts in a company is not only to secure the company's data, it is also to enlighten the members of the company. And in addition to enlightening the staff, much work is tied to getting the senior executives to spend money on the cybersecurity infrastructure. So many a time, we find that communicating cyber risk and the necessity of cyber infrastructure can be a bit complicated. So today we'll be learning how network specialists can easily communicate with their senior executives. Our panelists will also be shedding light on identifying the easy ways of communicating the common cyber risks to non-tech people. We'll be outlining the legal, business, and institutional necessity for cyber infrastructure. We'll also be outlining the important internal policies companies must have on cybersecurity, and they'll be identifying the ways of communicating data breach to senior executives. So we are privileged this morning to connect with our panelists who are experts in cyber tech. I'm delighted to introduce Oladipo. He is the Vice President of IHS Towers and also the CEO of GIC, which is a subsidiary of IHS. So Mr. Oladipo, over to you now.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I need to confirm. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've done a wonderful introduction of the topic to discuss. I'm happy to be here, and I think that the discussants are also quite prepared to onboard and provide insights into what it takes to effectively communicate cybersecurity, the process, the concept, the associated risk, and how to manage it within an organization to participants on the webinar. I believe that you've provided some fundamental background to what cybersecurity is, but I may just want to mention that this is all related to ensuring that the systems and networks are protected from infractions by people who threaten it in order to gain access to it. And gaining access to those systems, not necessarily just for the purpose of accessing, but to make changes or to tamper with those systems and networks in such a way as to derive certain benefit that may be inimical to the operations of those systems and networks or their performance in general. I think for lawyers, since this is more of a corporate discourse, the key issues around cybersecurity revolves around what you need to do to ensure that your systems, your network, the processes that it drives and the operations that it drives are secure and are operating within the ambit of the requisite regulations and law that guides that business and guides its interactions with its customers. Um, but I mean, at the heart of cybersecurity, the people that manages those systems, the people who need to know, the people who need to take action, and the processes that they take to ensure that those actions or the required tests and resilience are built into those systems and network. And of course, the technologies that are involved in ensuring that all of the processes are activated and work seamlessly to deliver the right level of protection for the business for continuity's sake and to avail it the right protection against the requisite risk. So um, I have fellow discussants on this webinar, this session. I would ask that they introduce themselves to you. I think one of our discussants is unavoidably absent this morning, but I am sure that the other two that are on the program would do justice to the discussion. And then afterwards, we can all ask questions after they've done their presentation. I would leave Mrs. Adewumi and Mr. Shaolu to introduce themselves, after which we can proceed to the presentations and start talking through what cybersecurity is and who needs to know within an organization, what processes we need to have for disclosure, who needs to coordinate the disclosure, and how do we ensure that the right processes are in place and the right governance are in place to ensure that the company works within, again, defined regulatory rules and corporate governance provisions within the organization and outside of it. So, again, good afternoon and welcome to this session. Mrs. Adewumi, please, you may introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, moderator. Yeah, good afternoon again, and thank you very much, ESQ, for having me here today. A quick introduction. My name is Ayodeji Adeomi, as you said, and presently I'm the Data Protection Officer for Zenith Bank UK, and I'm also a certified privacy practitioner with a legal background, and I have a passion for data protection. I have a passion for cybersecurity, anything that has to do with workings of organizations on the using technology is my interest. And largely, I have a very strong interest, and because I believe the world we live in today needs it, a protection of individuals while we work systems for providing services and products to people across the world. Yeah, so I'll say that's my brief introduction I'll provide to you today.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adeomi. Mr. Shalu, over to you.
Thank you. My
Introduction.
name is David Ashalu. Thank you so much for having me. I am the managing partner at Velma Consulting, and then the project producer at the Velma ARC. Velma ARC is the Velma Action to Reduce Cyber Crimes, where we rehabilitate influential cyber criminals, empower them, and convert them from cyber criminals to cyber cops. So they help in eliminating and prosecuting cyber crimes. My interest beyond, eliminating cyber crimes, I also have interest in helping organizations to identify identify and prevent cyber threats. So because we believe prevention is better than cure. So what we try to do is to look at the threats, the trends, and then to warn beforehand. And we have a large network of cyber operatives, both on both sides of the divide, to provide the information and the guidance as well. Uh, I believe that we'll benefit a lot from the webinar today, and I really look forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you. So, and just for the participants, please, the presenters would do a 15 minutes maximum presentation, just talk through their views on the issues that we're discussing. And after that, we can ask questions. Please uh, be free to, you may write down your questions. I think it's probably a portal here where you can also send in questions, and the discussants would address those questions afterwards. And please, no question is too mundane. Let's make it as interactive as possible. I think we should sort of share ideas, and this forum is supposed to enable us to do that with the guidance of the panelists who are subject matter experts on the issues being discussed. Okay, so Mrs. Adeomi, you may want to go ahead and present.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, can I get my slide on the screen, please? Okay, I would like to make a start by saying briefly and quickly that we are living in times when we cannot overemphasize the need for cybersecurity, considering the fact that almost 100% of what we do right now is done virtually. Everything we do is done via systems, and everything is done in the cyberspace. Organizations are trending now, and everything they're doing is done virtually, automated processes everywhere. Now, while we do this, cybersecurity becomes threatened because we have different people who are trying to access information for different purposes. And therefore, it becomes very vital for us to have a good understanding of what cybersecurity is, understand the risk we're exposed to as an organization, the risk we're exposed to as individuals, and what steps we can take actually to ensure that we curb this. And I'll quickly say also that what we are trying to achieve here today is ensuring that organizations understand in the simplest way they can the importance of cybersecurity and the risk posed that the working or their technology and the use of systems poses to their daily business. And importantly, for senior executives to understand this particular threat and agree with the operatives within the organization on what should be done about it. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, I've said here that we all know cybersecurity basically is any potential risk or harm that an organization can suffer as a result of using technology. So it's as simple as this. Can we suffer any harm or loss as a result of the fact that we are using technology in the place of our business? Although I also know that the focus of this particular discourse today is not on the individuals whose information we probably will process while we are working, but basically solely on the organization and ensuring that the executives and those responsible for the business of the organization do the right thing. And in discussing cyber risk, there are three key points that would always need to understand and have a good visibility of, and that's the people, our process, and our technology. When we say people, who are we referring to here? We're referring to anyone who can have access to our technology within the organization. And the people we are referring to here are both the employees, the threat vectors, and the hackers out there who are trying to get access into the technology of the system, and also those who have authorized access to work it. Because if you have employees within organizations who don't know how to work the system and who don't have a good understanding of the risk working on technology poses to them as individuals and to the business, becomes a problem. Then we also need to consider, do we have proper processes within the organization that employees need to know to ensure that they have visibility of and they have good understanding of when they're processing and doing anything using technology within the organization? And thirdly, what technology do you have in place? Do you have a good understanding of the technology you're using within your business? Also, is that particular technology fit for what you do as an organization? Is it fit for the processes that you carry out? Because we would also know international best practice says that any organization should ensure that at every point in time, to continuously fight cyber risk and ensure that you are cyber secure, the level of technology involved in the business must be suitable to the level of activities carried out within that business. So it's important we understand the people, the process, and the technology in place in any organization. Next slide, please. Now, we come to the question. If we say that cyber risk is important, we should understand the cyber risk we face as a business to be able to secure the business and ensure that we do things properly. The only way we can do this is to have a clear visibility of our cyber infrastructure. This is the problem most organizations across the world face. We are all working with technology now, when it's at an age where information is everywhere. There's access to information. We should ensure that we have a good visibility of our infrastructure that we use to access, to process information, and also that we use within our business. And you ask yourself the question, when we talk about cyber infrastructure, what are we talking about? We are talking about the entire landscape of technology engaged within a business. And you think, is this important? All I need to do is have a system where I can be able to work one or two things and that's done. But it's important for us to understand the cyber infrastructure within the business. And there's a legal reason for it, there's a business reason for it, and there's an institutional reason for this. I'll run through, I have 6 key points you will see before you with respect to the necessity for cyber infrastructure and understanding the cyber infrastructure within the business. The first is the business objectives. You need to think about it now. What is the objective of my business? What is the objective of this organization? In which way will technology help us to achieve these business objectives? We live in an age and an era where it's impossible for most organizations to fulfill their objectives without having the proper technology in place and understanding what this technology is so they are able to remain competitive and also in business. Obviously, we also know that there's an economic advantage to being a technology savvy organization. When you are technology savvy, you are able to process your activities and do things quicker and safer. And therefore, you have an economic advantage. Your bottom line is secured. Your profit and loss, your profit ratio obviously is also in a good place. Understanding and having a good cyber infrastructure system in place would help business continuity. It would definitely help business continuity. Organizations who don't have proper systems in place and proper understanding of their cyber infrastructure could have their business go under in one day, and that's the end of everything. There are several cyber threats out there that can discontinue any business without formal actions being taken against them in any way. And therefore, the cyber infrastructure and the cyber space of any organization should be visible to those who are responsible for this, and also have a good understanding so they are able to propagate and sell this message to senior executives within the business. There's obviously growing legal and regulatory compliance issues involved in cybersecurity and the cyber infrastructure of any organization. First, we now know that there are cyber security protection laws across the world. There's importantly the use of data, which both local and international laws are providing regulation. A quick one would be what we had a few years ago in the international scene when the GDPR came on board. And basically, this is the regulation that affects organizations everywhere in the world. In Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation and also the Data Protection Bill, which is still before the House, not yet passed into law. What all these regulations seeks to do is to ensure that organizations know what their cyberspace looks like. For you to protect data that you come in contact with, for you to protect data that you process, you must have a good understanding of the your cyber space and the infrastructure you have in place. And most of this regulation ensures and provides strictly that organizations must ensure that they have organizational and technological measures to ensure that they protect information while they work. And what this simply means is this: where you are in breach of any of these regulations, there are sanctions and fines that follow. Therefore, it's impossible for any organization to not consider the legal, business, and institutional necessity for having a robust cyber infrastructure, having a good visibility of what their cyber infrastructure looks like, and being able to sell this to the business to ensure that it remains in the top, the front agenda of the board of directors. Obviously, also, I would quickly say, which I've mentioned earlier, is the visibility of the cyber landscape of the organization. Most problems we have engaged in my experience and in my practice over the years, what I've noticed is this: the information technology people and security people within organizations don't in themselves have a good understanding of the landscape, or sorry, of the cyber infrastructure of the organization they work with. And now, when you don't have a good picture of what something looks like, it becomes impossible for you to sell it or provide a good understanding of it to those you report to within the business. And therefore, it affects the way they would be able to probably give decisions and also follow up with any proposal you make or your request for budget with respect to any activity you need to do with respect to cybersecurity within the organization. And finally, on this point, I would say competition, competition, competition. Every organization, most businesses in the world now, everyone is working and trading on technology. It's impossible for you not to have a good understanding of the technology you require to be able to meet your needs per time, and also to ensure that there's continuous monitoring and compliance with what you should comply with to ensure that your business is not negatively impacted by the risk open to your business as a result of the fact that you do business with technology. So obviously, we cannot overemphasize the need for understanding of cyber infrastructure within the organization. I'll go quickly to run. We know that for cybersecurity, organizations, if you have good visibility of what you do or with your technology within the business, it's important that you have policies and procedures in place. And through the policies and procedures you have in place, you are able to communicate to the business what is expected of them. Like we all know, cybersecurity, understanding cyber risk, analyzing it is not the sole responsibility of the infosec department, IT, or data protection people within the business. When it comes to cybersecurity, because it affects the entire business, it's everyone's responsibility, from the board of directors to the officers of the business. So we have here key policies that organizations must have. Now, I would say clearly and quickly that these policies is not all there is. Depending on the cyber infrastructure of any organization, you would need to sit down and do a review of what your cyber infrastructure and your systems look like. Depending on what your cyber infrastructure and your systems look like will determine what policies and procedures you need to have in place to ensure that your people have a good understanding of what they can do and what they cannot do with the systems within the organization. Access control policy is very important. We should be able to control who has access to certain information and who has access to certain platform. In no organization who have a good understanding of what their cyber infrastructure is like, would you see access to systems being given to everyone without control? It's impossible. There must be an access control policy in place that ensures how you can obtain and request access to certain systems, and also a policy and grounds with respect to when access is denied to individuals. For example, you have an employee who joins an organization, has access to the major platforms and the core platforms and systems of the organization. There should be processes in place that show that when leavers or employees are leaving the establishment, certain processes must put in place to ensure that their access is revoked and denied immediately. So there must be policies and procedures around all of this. And that's where we say that cybersecurity is not responsibility of the infosec people, something that has to do with the entire business. Everyone should understand the importance of the systems they use. The policies around them should state clearly what these things are and how the business will go around monitoring this. We have access use policy. We have the change management policy, which is important for business continuity and all of that. We have the information security policy that tells people what information is important and what should be done about it. Obviously, the different categories of data classification, information classification, this policy provides for it. We have the information security, which also provides different kinds of security with respect to information. There's a physical security policy that is involved, which we are talking about your entire premises, who has access to the premises, who doesn't have access to the premises. There's several things that are considered here. There's also the incident response policy, where there is a breach within the system. What do we do about it? How do we go about it? Do we have regulatory reporting to do? Who is responsible? Who are the first frontline people within the business? Who do you report to? What steps do you take? There's also the remote access policy at a time where there's so much, there's never been a time in history where there's been this rapid and fast growing remote work development across the world. Everyone is working remotely now based on the new changes we find ourselves in, what the pandemic has brought our way. It's impossible for organizations to continue in business without having a remote access policy that shows who has access to certain platforms remotely, and providing secured gateway whereby employees can have access to this the organization's platforms while they work from home. There's the email and communication policy. Employees should be made to understand how communication and emails should be done, what social media platforms they can work on, what access do they have, and what they can do on this platform. There's also the disaster recovery policy and the business continuity policy. All these policies are key and basic policies that every organization who works using technology must have. And like I said earlier, there are a lot more policies and procedures that are relevant depending on your sphere of business, the cyber infrastructure you have in place, and the industry you find yourself in. Now, I go finally to the most important bit of the day, which I would say is, how do you, as people involved in majorly the information sec people within the organization, the IT people, data protection people within the organization, how do you ensure you are able to get senior management buy-in to ensure that they understand the importance of cybersecurity? They understand the risk the organization faces with respect to cybersecurity, and they're able to do the needful. The first and most important thing I would say here is corporate governance requirement. Best practice across the world makes it clear that the responsibility for cybersecurity doesn't start from the bottom down up. It starts from the top, which means that the board and senior management, they have a requirement, they have an obligation to ensure that cybersecurity remains on the top burner. And what does this simply mean? It means every senior management meeting, every board meeting should have on its agenda cybersecurity, because that is the whole essence of ensuring that there's proper corporate governance. It means that appropriate reports should come from several departments within the business on cybersecurity threats that the business faces, the activities of the infosec and security people with respect to cybersecurity, and a good understanding of what the cyber landscape of the business looks like. Board members, obviously, we all know, are not really involved, and they don't have a strong desire to know the day-to-day activities of the IT people, the day-to-day activity of the information security people. But it's very important that this is communicated to them in a way that they understand, because there's a direct link between the continuity of the business and its efforts with respect to cybersecurity and handling the threats that the organization faces as a result of lack of cybersecurity. So corporate governance requirement is important. The board is involved with this, senior management is involved with this. Secondly, and I would say very importantly, is make a case for cybersecurity within the business. Make a case for cybersecurity within the business. We all know the way most board members and senior management people perceive cost centers and profit centers. Now, infosec and the information technology is seen largely as a cost center, but there should be a different way and a new view, new lenses for which organizations view cybersecurity. The truth is this: let the board and the senior management understand that the profitability of the business, the continuity of the business, is tied to how secure in its cyberspace the business is. You need to make a cyber case, you need to make a business case for cybersecurity. Tie the profit of the business to its cyber resilience. Where an organization has very low cyber resilience efforts, it's impossible and almost, it's a question of time, that particular organization will not be able to thrive. So it's important that you are able to make a business case for cybersecurity. The board and the senior management are concerned about bottom line, but you should let them know that the bottom line they are trying to secure would not be there if there's a threat to the systems of the organization. If there's a particular malware, or we have a DDoS attack, the continuity of the business is questioned. So what you're trying to protect will not be available if you don't have a secure cyberspace and a secure cyber environment within the business. Thirdly, you need to present your case as a necessary business process and not a compliance effort. When we say cybersecurity should no longer be a compliance effort, but a business process, we are saying the entire business, the entire processes within the business should ensure and include the importance of cybersecurity, which means all your processes should say, if we have a problem with a particular system, we would not be able to achieve the business goal. And if business goals is tied to your ability to perform well and your cyber resilience, then you know that it's no longer the fact that, oh, we have certain regulations that we need to comply with. It's now looking at it from the point of view, if we do not ensure that we have a secure cyber environment within this business, within the organization, we will not be in business. So it's not really about compliance. The focus is about ensuring that we remain a going concern. And to remain a going concern, cybersecurity should be embedded in your business process. Fourthly, I would say create and sell a plan of managing identified risk to the business. Now, if you're trying to tell the board of directors, you're trying to tell senior management how important cybersecurity is, you're trying to get them to create a budget for you, you're trying to get them to invest more in infrastructure, technology, and all of that, you must be able to provide them with a plan. The plan should include on the fact that you are provided a memo to them saying, this is what possible threats we are open to as a business, as an organization doing business in financial services. If we are open to these threats, this is what we need to do to ensure that we are able to cover these threats per time. People need to see a plan in front of them. Now, if you tell me I have a problem and you cannot tell me how to go about solving my problem, it's difficult for me to see you as important in any way to what you're trying to tell me, or to even get me to provide the resources you want me to provide. So it's important we are able to set a proper plan, identifying the risk to the business and providing solutions and steps that can be taken to cover this risk. Also, link cyber risk to business continuity. Link cyber risk to business continuity. If you are able to provide a good visibility report to your business, showing this is the infrastructure, this is our cyber infrastructure, this is what we look like right now, you are able to create the gaps and provide a gap analysis within the system, showing what gaps should be plugged and what technology creations you need within the organization to plug this. You must be able to link it to the continuity of the business. If you're telling the business, we need to have certain infrastructure in place, which we do not have, we need to have certain monitoring activities, which we do not have, we need to carry out certain patches, penetration testing within the bank, which we do not have, or within the system, which we do not have. And you're telling the system, if we do not do this, we would not be in business for long. Now, senior executives want to see anything that could be a threat to their ability to continue in business, anything that will be a threat to their able to continue to make profit, they will listen to you. So if you're not able to link cyber risks to cyber continuity, it becomes difficult for you to do this. Okay, I'll go quickly to say that also we should emphasize the point that cybersecurity is not the sole responsibility of infosec specialists or network specialists within the organization. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. To keep an organization going and to keep the business afloat and to continue as a going concern, it's important that we're able to sell this message and propagate this message to the business. Thank you very much.
Very, very insightful. I think it was so good that I was compelled not to stop you within the 15 minutes time frame during which you should have rounded up. But very, very, very beautiful presentation. I think we would all want to have a piece of the presentation. I think we're going to share it after this session. But very incisive on the nature and quality of what needs to be protected, and who needs to know, and how should we ensure that they're onboarded. And of course, the basis for that onboarding, which sits at the root of, again, I keep saying business continuity and the soul of the business itself, and how the conflict between cost and overall business impact has to be managed, and the processes for managing those. I'm sure the participants have a lot of questions, but I will let Mr. Ashaolu also talk through his views on this very important topic, given where the world is today, the new normal. And then after that, we can take questions from everybody else. And now we can also try to tailor the conversations to the specifics of this session. But I think you did justice to that, and thank you very much. Mr. Shaulu. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was a very wonderful presentation. I will try not to plagiarize you, although I'm highly tempted. because it just covers the ground. What I will just do within the next 15 minutes is to highlight a couple of things to add more flesh to what you have already done. I like your definition of cyber risk. It's sufficient. What I'll just say is what determines or what influences the organization's response to a cyber risk or a cyber threat would would be dependent on the type of organization and their objectives. That would also determine the focus of the cybersecurity analyst for that organization. Um, so, what would be um, a risk or a threat to a health organization, for instance, may necessarily not be a threat to a fintech organization because they have different objectives. So, for for us trying to reach out to our executives and our bosses, we have to consider first what the objectives of the organization would be, and then so that will help us to say to them exactly what they need to hear. Another thing I want to say is I want to talk about is motivation for cyber threats or for cyber risk as it were. There are different reasons people attack us, and just like you were saying, moderator, we are in the age where everything is going online because of the coronavirus and the pandemic. We we we're moving everything online. I like this illustration that I've used before. If we are in a house that has only one door and one access in and out, it's easier for us to eliminate security risks because what we have to do is to fortify this single access and focus our attention on this access. But if the house has multiple accesses, windows, backdoor, um, underground access, multiple doors, then we're going to have to focus our attention on multiple entry points to prevent security risks. That's the same thing that we're facing right now. Everything is moving online, so we're exposing ourselves to multiple access to cyber threats. That means that we have to also expand the frontiers of our cybersecurity infrastructure. So the motivation for cyber threats to an organization could be for economic, could be economic sabotage, could be attack coming from the competition, and it could also be for pecuniary reasons or for monetary gains. And we also have to understand that cyber threats to organizations don't necessarily come from outsiders, they also come from insiders. So we have to come up with policies and plans that would take care of all these um, eventualities. For instance, denial of service attack could be an insider, it could be an aggrieved ex-employee, and it could also be from the competitor who wants to take us out of business. I don't know if we know how that works. Where a denial of service attack happens, the system, the infrastructure, the cyber infrastructure of the organization is bombarded um, with numerous requests that the system is overwhelmed and then it shuts down. When the system is overwhelmed and it shuts down, it affects the availability of information or data. It affects the integrity of data as well. And it also affects the business continuity because at that particular instance, just think about it. You're trying to access your um, Zenith Bank online banking, for instance, and you see a message that says, sorry, this Zenith Bank website has been hacked. I'm not going to bank with Zenith Bank after that because I'm not going to say, then my information, my money is not secured. So as an organization, these are things that we try to prevent. Virus and malicious codes are also part of cyber threats that can affect, business continuity and affect affect our productivity as well. Ransomware, for instance, ransomware is becoming very popular. Ransomware is where a malicious person sends a virus, takes over your system, encrypts your information, and tells you to pay money for him to release the decryption or the encryption key so that you can access your information. Where you don't pay money, it tells you it's going to delete your information or it's going to sell it to a competitor. So is actively holding you to a ransom. Um, Malicious persons are making a lot of money from ransomware all over the world. And the incidences of ransomware have increased tremendously since the beginning of the pandemic. There's also the business email compromised, that's BEC, which should be of concern to organizations as well. I'm sure we all know Oshpoppy, we know Obi, Victor's Obi. That is their stock in trade. From BEC, Victor's Obi alone was able to defraud people of over $11 million. Oshpoppy, on the other hand, was going towards around 142 million pounds. It was going to defraud a Premier League club of 100 million pounds from BEC alone. BEC is huge, and it requires lots of them. It's like a web of other cybersecurity, cyber threats, money laundering, hacking. Let me just explain briefly how it works. So the hacker or the malicious person sends an email to all the employees of an organization. One of them carelessly opens the email and clicks on the link that's inside the email that says something like, click here for whatever reason. As you click on the link, automatically a software or a malware, that's better what to use, a malicious software as a malware is installed on your computer. The malware then takes control of your contacts and then reads all the email addresses of other employees in the organization, as well as continues to read your conversations. Whenever there's a time, or when it gets to a time where there's supposed to be like a monetary transaction, this malicious person can see that you're expecting money or you're about to pay money. He can send a spurious email address, from a spurious email address, or even on your behalf, to the person that's supposed to pay you money and give them the wrong account information. The other person, believing that the email came from you, sends the money to the wrong account information. It doesn't matter how much it is. The money is going to go because the account information they're providing, even though it is the wrong one, it's a valid one. And as soon as the money goes to that account, they transfer it using money laundering skills and move it around the world. So BEC is a very serious threat to organizations. There are also other threats, maybe not necessarily of major concern to corporate organizations, like cyber fraud and so on and so forth. But there are steps that we can take to avert, these types of threats. It depends on the kind of threat itself. So if it's to prevent ransomware, we need to have a very good antivirus software. If it's to prevent BEC, that requires a lot of training and a lot of discipline on the part of the staff as well. So steps to avert will depend on the type of threat, but most importantly, and which the previous speaker already hammered on, is the internal policies of the organization. The internal policies will tell the staff what to do at what particular time. I'm just going to say, so I don't have to refer what she said. For remediation, which, when she was discussing internal policy, she said incident response, or that's, well, who will say remediation. There is a provision of the law in Nigeria, Nigerian Cybercrime Act, that says, Section 21, I think, that if you think your system has been compromised, you must inform the National Computer Emergency Response Team immediately. So that's one thing that we should put in mind. That's on the policy basis. Then she talked about GDPR and NGPR and all the other stuff. We have to take them very seriously. Other policies may also include counter-attack policies, destroy policies. So I've advised organizations where their policy, because of the sensitivity of the information that they keep, as soon as there's a breach, they destroy the entire system.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's a backup, but they destroy the entire system that has been compromised. So one, prevent further compromise, and two, to ensure that whatever information that is in the hands of the malicious person becomes useless. One thing we have to understand is that cyber intrusion is not a one-time activity. If your system is compromised the first time, there is a 60% chance that they're going to compromise the system again within a very short period of time. So cybersecurity, we have to be up and alert every single time to continue to identify and prevent cyber threats. So under regulatory compliance, to add to what you said, IT specialists, cybersecurity specialists and organizations should have and update their ISO compliances as well, because this also affects business. made a very valid point. We have to be able to convince our executives that cybersecurity or cyber risk assessment is not um, is not an expenditure. It's part of what brings money on board. So if your system or your cyber infrastructure is ISO compliant, that gives confidence to your customers and your clients to do business with you. If you're not ISO compliant, they would need to go elsewhere. And then just to round up, I would just say that if you're going to advise um, executives, one, you have to hire a risk assessment professional. I also advise that you should get insurance or get money back guarantee cybersecurity solutions. And you should also update your internal policies to accommodate all these concerns and challenges. Sorry, I do not have a fancy slide to share, but I'm sure that the slides are already shared by the first speaker take care of all of this. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Shalu. I think you definitely brought a lot of additional insight into this, particularly on the need for organization to be very deliberate on the need to protect uh, their data, not necessarily just as a function of good business, but also because there are legal and regulatory requirements that sort of mandates that you must have a degree of protection. And to be able to assure that degree of protection, you need to have certain processes that are now required to protect the data of both your customers and your internal customers, your employees and staff. I think you also brought one other important thing I think you brought into the conversation is the need for businesses to be adaptive in terms of how they view cybersecurity as business measures, since it's not a one size fit all, but the nature of the business would determine the degree of cybersecurity processes, procedures, technology, and people that you're deploying for those functions within those businesses. Thank you. I think we've had very robust conversation from both presenters. Well, I don't think I think that question's been addressed because I was going to ask the in terms of what the purpose of this webinar should be. I think listeners or participants are quite onboarded, I believe, as to why it is necessary. It's business requirement, competitive requirement, legislative or regulatory requirement, and of course compliance requirements as well, just in terms of good governance as you run businesses. I think that is clear. I also think that based on the contributions from the panelists, it is clear to all of us that for businesses, um, communicating cybersecurity rules or processes uh, actually sits within the management as a management function with dedicated. Most companies have chief information security officers, and some companies just have basic IT leads that are in charge of network security and are making sure that there's compliance in collaboration with the human resources or personnel units of these businesses to make sure that everyone gets to be onboarded on the process and the processes is set up and the procedures. I think the presenters also pretty much onboarded us on the need for um, everyone to see this as not just the role or responsibilities of the people who manages the system, but as collective responsibility within the business to ensure that the business is protected from cyber attack and digital infractions by people who are looking to capitalize on loopholes to gain advantages or, I mean, certain advantages, be it personal, be it corporate, against those organizations. I think one thing though that we may need to talk about, and I'm going to ask you about this, Mrs. Adewumi. Sometimes there are competing interests within the business. Not necessarily just the cost to benefit conflict, but also the need to adhere to certain um, legal frameworks, institutional legal frameworks, vis-a-vis the need to protect the company's data. With all of these data protection rules coming on board, and the limits to which the businesses needs to go, or the level, not limits, now the level, because I believe there are no limits to those levels, but there are limitations by the law. At the level that businesses needs to go to ensure protection of its objective. There's this conflict that I've always, as a professional, worried about. What are your views on this in general, if you understand what I'm talking about?
Okay, let me
Yes, you have all the laws. You must work within certain boundaries. But again, in order to protect your business, you may need to get outside of those boundaries. How do you manage that?
Okay, now I would say largely, if I understand your question appropriately, what you're trying to say is this: where you have regulations that you need to comply with, yeah, and you have business requirements that you also need to meet in code. So where you have a clash between your business goals and what your obligations by law is, where do you pitch your tent? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I mean, think about it, the GDPR and access to certain personal data. And of course, again, you have people in the course of their employment, in the course of their business transactions, as customers, as internal employees, going outside of the remits of their access. And now you need to make sure that you provide certain, cybersecurity that enables you to be able to get into their personal data, but not necessarily within the ambit of the law. But this you need to do just to protect the business. How do you manage that?
Well, I would say one thing, what I've always done in my experience, and which I still do, is this. First thing, I like the business to understand we have boundaries. Where the law gives us certain boundaries to work within, we must work within those boundaries. Going outside of those boundaries would definitely lead us down the road to breach. And we don't want breach. With breach comes sanctions and fines and bad reputation, like we have mentioned earlier. Now, interestingly, the law also allows you to actually play within certain areas. With respect to protecting the rights of individuals, there is no compromise with the law. Now, with respect to certain technologies to actually have in place within the business to protect individuals, the law allows you to make your own decisions with respect to, like we said earlier, an organization in the health sector necessarily does not need to have the same infrastructure with respect compared to an organization in financial services. An organization who actually, maybe a small scale business owner who just gets minimal data from individuals would need a different kind of technology infrastructure in place to process their activities. So the question is this: you must ensure that from time to time, you consider your business, you consider the information you hold about people, and determine and decide what infrastructure you need to ensure that you provide sufficient protection for them. While the law allows you to think out with your decision on that place, the law does not allow you to vary the level of protection you give individuals. So if you decide to go by a level of security that would not adequately protect individuals, should there be a breach, you will face the music. So the question always is this: when you are thinking of what you should put in place and what you should implement within the organization or within the business, think of the level of information you are collecting, the level of processing you are engaging in, and the level of protection you need to give those people's information. Now, if you're collecting financial details from people, you cannot compare yourself to an organization who only collects contact details. You get what I'm trying to say? If there is a breach with contact information, the level of harm such individuals can experience, you can compare it to if they have financial information included. So that's the key thing. While the law allows you to determine what infrastructure to have in place, the law does not allow you to determine whether you should protect people or not. So you need to think at all times, the level of infrastructure I have in place, will it protect the people and the information I'm getting about them? If it does, that's fine. Because if there's a breach, you would face the music. So basically, it's comparing the structure you have in place with the obligations you have with respect to protecting individuals.
Thank you very much. Very, very incisive. I thought it was a trick question, but you did justice to it. Last one from me, David, if I can call you that.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, thinking through it, you know, we seem to assume that everyone would understand when we say these are the threats to a business within the business. Unfortunately, I used to be a nonconformist, which is why I never actually practiced law. That's my law background, and I see a lot of people like that in businesses where if you tell them that this would happen because that they take a very hostile approach to it because they see some of these gaps. You know how many times you have to change your password. Every other time you log off. How do you what do you think is the best approach to onboarding everyone so the naysayers can see the benefit um, to having cybersecurity processes and procedures within a business? And this is just a general, approach. Sometimes you have to approve 10 things on your computer and you have 10 passwords for it. As executives, you just get into the whole, this is just not working. But again, like you said, these are necessities. How do you get the buy-in of all of the collaborators you need in the business in terms of communication? How do you effectively do this?
So I just ask you what's your alternative is. You don't want to have 10 passwords, fine. You want to be vulnerable? You call me when you're attacked, then I'll bill you. Simple. You either go through the pain of protecting yourself or you expose yourself and then we'll do remediation when you're attacked. On the other hand, though, there are softwares, there are tools that can help you, you
Yeah.
know, go through or go around some of these limitations and problems. So if the problem is to remember is remembering the passwords or having multiple passwords, there are password managers that can handle that for you. You also have to choose your password managers because number one thing with cybersecurity is trust. The less people you trust, the more secure you are.
Yeah.
So if you have to trust more people, you know that you're also increasing your vulnerabilities. So if you trust Amazon, fine. If you trust Google, fine. Do I trust them? I don't know. So it's not always what I think. I would rather just trust myself, right? So I'll try to remember my passwords and not have any password manager handle it for me. But if I know it's a problem, then I can, give a certain level of trust to proprietary interest for a fee, and I know that I get this these concerns taken care of. So what I would just say is one of the things I mentioned earlier. If you are going to um, increase your vulnerability level by trusting more people to handle certain cybersecurity issues for you, then you should be insured. You should go for money back guarantees. You should go for insurance so that if you get bumped, then you can get a fallback. Basically, those are like the three things I would advise um, people. But basically, I'm just going to ask you if you want to expose yourself by not being secured, then you should be ready to, like Madam said earlier, face the music.
Thank you so much. I think at this point, I don't know if anyone in the audience has any question. They can either type it in. I've not seen any question in the chat, so we'll just probably take a 1 minute to see if anyone has any question before I round this up. But this has been really, really very educated and very incisive in terms of depth of the issues and discourse. Are there questions from anyone? I don't see any. In the absence of any further question, I'll ask both panelists one last shot, 2 minutes, just to round up. And so we've talked a lot about security, what needs to be done. Um, Maybe we should talk a little bit about the consequences of insecurity. How do you deal with that? Um, cyber insecurity. So just in case there's a breach, uh, what, how do you think businesses should manage it? I mean, this is probably a disaster or crisis management approach. But what are your thoughts in 2 minutes before we round this up? Is that Deomi, you want to go first?
Okay. Okay, I would say the first thing is this. Well, before you have a breach and before there's a crisis, I want to believe that definitely you have a compendium of relevant laws applicable to you. Because when there's a breach now, it's now outside of the remit of your organization. You have some reporting obligations to carry out. I know that for a good one in the Nigerian data protection regulation, I'm not so clear on it, but I can say quickly for the GDPR now in the UK and applicable in EU. If your organization has a breach, the first thing you should do is consider what breach has occurred. What do you need to do with respect to the information? If it has to do with information of individuals, you need to report it to regulators if certain details are involved. If you don't have any proper remediation within your business, involve those individuals so they can take steps to protect themselves. That is the external reporting. But obviously, where there's a breach, internally, the first thing you need to do is this. Before the breach occurs, obviously, your incident reporting policy and procedure should be known to those who are responsible within the business. The first responders, obviously, we have a group of individuals across the business. We should take the remediation action immediately to ensure that they put an end to the immediate breach. When it has to do with systems, then take remediation steps. And obviously, other procedures in your business continuity and other things comes in. But the first thing to look at is this. If it's merely internal and there's no reportable obligation, what do we do internally immediately to curtail the breach? If you have external obligation perspective, because individuals' information is involved, you report within certain timelines to the regulators and also contact those individuals involved. So I'll quickly say that's the first step you take, the internal step and the external step.
Thank you very much. David?
Yes, by all means, I'm 100% with Madam. I'm just going to add that. So when you look at all of this, then what do we do next? What are the immediate actions to take to ensure that you know the damage, you plug the leak, as it were, you stop the bleeding. So it depends on the kind of risk or the kind of threat that you're facing, you know. But one thing that I know a lot of people have done is to limit your connectivity immediately. So if you're connected to any external internet connection or connectivity, as it were, you want to probably just pull your plug first, because more often you suffer the security risk because you're connected to the internet. If you're not connected to okay, so let's just say it this way. If I have a computer, a laptop that's not connected to anything, nothing can come into it. But as soon as it connects it to something, if it's a USB stick or if it's a LAN cable or Ethernet or even internet or even intranet, then you expose yourself to vulnerabilities. You remember the analogy of the building with multiple doors. So one thing you want to do is, as look at the internal procedures and policies, you want to close the doors, shut the doors against further intrusions and further harm. Because, as I said earlier, if you will compromise once, you will compromise again. So what you want to do is you want to shut the doors, you want to ensure that you limit the exposure, and then you can take care of the problem internally. But most importantly, you have to spend a lot of money on security. You have to spend a lot of money on alternatives. So when I was doing my one of my programs, we were working on a project called Where's the Party. That project was to prevent denial of service attacks by encouraging people to mirror their information, their data, to have multiple multiple sources or multiple servers handling the same information. So if someone attacks a server, the alternative server picks it immediately. That was what we called it at the time, but now it's sounding like blockchain. So I'm just going to say that there's technology to ensure that these attacks don't actually affect you so badly. One of those technologies is blockchain technology. If you understand how blockchain works, you understand that you can avert or you can minimize the effects of cybersecurity risk on your business if you can employ the blockchain technology, basically.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I do understand that. I think I spent some time selling network security services at some point in my career. But thank you. everyone for the panelists, the participants, ESQ or practical learning. This has been quite very useful and purpose fit webinar session. I'm happy to be part of it, coordinating. In the absence of any other question, uh, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being.
Bye.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who has been part of today's session. I want to say thank you to our chair and moderator, Mr. Oladeko. Thank you, Mrs. Ade. Thank you, Mr. Shalby. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to prepare for this event and to also be here at this time. We are very grateful and we do not take it for granted. We also want to say a very big thank you to our sponsors. They're the ones who have made today's webinar and all our webinar series possible. They're the reasons why we can organize this webinars free of charge. G. Elias and Co. and Advocate Law Practice. Thank you so much. Thank you to all our attendees. Thank you for being part of today's webinar series. And like I mentioned earlier, that we have this webinars 3 times every week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Our next webinar series is titled Workplace Health and Safety Issues and Legal Considerations. It's coming up on Friday, the 5th of February, 2021 at 11 a.m. It promises to be very insightful and we look forward to engaging everyone there. Also, like I said, our training for Empower registration is ongoing in respect of that. It's titled The Dynamics of Power Contract, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, Project Financing, on everything that has to do with power contracts. It commences on the 16th of February, 2021. And if you want to get more information about it, please send me a mail at esq-law.com. o.chilanke@esq-law.com. You can send me a mail and we'll be ready. We'll be happy to provide more information to you with respect to that. So thank you so much once again. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, activists. It's been really a wonderful day, very insightful, very rich with the content that we had today. So thank you all and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, Mr. David.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, bye, Mr. Adeumi. Thank you so much for that.